What do you make of Will Goodge?
I love Will Goodge. I think he's great. I think he is an interesting and compelling breath of fresh air into the ultra running community. Just by way of background, I have some experience in ultra endurance events. I've done a bunch of hard races over the years. So I have a connection to that community. I know a lot of people in that community. I have a lot of friends in that community. Will's BFF in ultra running is our mutual friend, Robbie Ballinger, who ran across the United States, has done a lot of hard things, set the record, the FKT for the central, how many miles you can run around the loop in Central Park in one day. Like, he's done a lot of crazy, wild stuff. And those guys couldn't be more different. And yet are the closest of friends, train together, race together. They crew each other's endeavors. And it's a really beautiful friendship that I've been sort of privy to witnessing and observing. I know Robbie a lot longer than I know Will, but I followed Will. It was Robbie who introduced me to Will originally. So I started following Will online, and I just found him to be so unique as a figure in this strange little subculture of ultra running, because that is a culture that historically has been populated with, guys that, live in the van down by the river, know how to grow a nice beard. It's a granola crowd. It's a very, in a beautiful way, it's a grassroots community that has participated in and helped grow a sport where typically there's no media coverage, there's no prize money, nobody's doing this for glory or media attention. You pitch a tent at the starting line the night before, you wake up, you do your 100 miles and you go home, and nobody else in the world knows what you did except for you. And there's something really pure and amazing about that. And that's sort of woven into the fabric of what this sport is about. Here comes Will Goodge, male model, 6-pack abs, looks a lot more like a rugby player than an ultra runner. He's got, the shaved torso and the skincare routine that he's happy to share with you. He's walking the catwalks. He loves a nice bathrobe and a 5-star hotel and tea service. He enjoys the finer things in life.
Good British gentleman.
Yes. At the same time, he's an absolute beast when it comes to ultra running, fueled by a desire to make peace with the early passing of his mother, who died of cancer, and to raise money and awareness around cancer research. He begins participating in these ultra runs. Mostly, I think he started doing some marathons, and he did the John O'Groats run. He did a couple hard things, but then created some self-styled adventures for himself, ran around Lake Como, and this past summer ran across the United States. No small feat, 3,000 miles. Robbie was there every single day supporting him. Reese Robinson was the guy who created the weekly vlog on the Audacious Report, which is the YouTube channel that they have. Reese used to work for me. He lived at my house. He created videos for me. So I know these guys really well. And it was super fun to watch Will throw down day after day, 52 miles, 54 miles, 56 miles, and do it with a smile and a certain flair and a passion for fashion. This guy looks good. And as hard as that was, there's something inside me that was thinking, he's kind of making it look easy. And this, in turn, ruffled some feathers out in the ultra running community.
I fucking love this. I want to know about these feathers.
That, there's a certain idea of what an ultra runner looks like, how they're supposed to be. And Will is very different from that. And I think people don't like different. And so there was a sort of, who is this guy and what is he doing? And then on message boards, people started taking shots at him. And there was a little movement about whether or not he was actually doing this legitimately.
Okay, so skepticism around the actual
achievement. A lot
achievement.
of skepticism, yeah. Yep. So much so that one guy flew from the United Kingdom and showed up. They were, I don't know where they were, in the middle of the Navajo Nation or something like that, convinced that Will was cheating and that he was there to root him out. It's a story that Will shares on my podcast. I don't know when this is going up, and I'm not sure when my conversation with Will is going up, but and Will had to kind of weather that on top of the difficulty of just actually competing this very difficult task. And so, which he did, and he did it again with flair.
Do you have I think it's a British record, perhaps? It's not a world record, but I think
I don't remember offhand. I could have looked that up.
Yep.
I think that was part of what ruffled feathers, that he was going to be the fastest British guy, but there was this other guy. It's like, who cares? Like, Will doesn't even care.
Yep.
He just wanted to go do this hard thing and raise money and experience it with his friends. And you can watch the weekly vlog on the Audacious Report and see how it all went down. But I respect Will for his conviction and his sense of self to just be who he is unapologetically.
Do you know he reminds me of Ross Edgley?
A little bit. I love Ross.
Ross is great. My not so much in the way he looks or the way he dresses. Ross is like permanently in.
Ross is a lot sillier.
Yes, true.
He's an absolute animal in the way that he trains. Mad respect for Ross and his accomplishments. I think he's just
you see his new one in Italy?
Yes. Yeah. And now he's back in Byron Bay training. But Ross is, I think Ross has a more childlike nature to him that's very endearing.
Yep.
But yes, similar in that they've cut their own path in endurance sports, not so much by participating in other people's races or sanctioned events, but by creating their own self-styled adventures.
What's the endurance community's response to Ross been? Because for the people that don't know, Ross swam for about 200 days, 6 hours on, 6 hours off, without stopping.
Right. All around the UK. He circumnavigated the UK.
The first man to ever swim around the UK. He has recently tried twice unsuccessfully, in combination with Gymshark, to complete the longest ever single duration swim. First time in Loch Ness, too cold. Second time in Italy, too hot.
Yeah.
This African heat wave comes in and the water temperature's 32 degrees. The air temperature's 40 degrees. So it's unbearable. Anyway, what was the endurance community's response to this guy who trains Chris Hemsworth, looks like a bodybuilder, crossed with a salty old sea dog, but is always laughing?
I didn't see any negative stuff about him, but I wasn't looking for it either.
That surprises me.
Yeah, I mean, he's a very affable guy. People, especially in open water swimming, can get very particular about rules and how these things are conducted. There's a whole controversy around Diana Nyad when she did her Cuba swim to Florida. Some people say she broke the rules, it shouldn't count, et cetera. So there's some persnickety kind of, attitude around these types of things. I don't have a sense of negative blowback on Ross. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. But I think to your point of the similarities between Will and Ross, like Ross doesn't look like an endurance athlete either. He's built like a tank. And yes, he trained Chris Hemsworth for Thor. He's just an absolute unit, this guy, which is not the kind of physique that you want to have for long distance open water swimming. And I've told him, I'm like, why are you putting on all this bulk? You're making this harder for yourself. If you lost 20 pounds of muscle, your shoulders wouldn't get tight. You'd lose a little bit of power in your stroke. But when you're going for ultra endurance, that's not important. What's important is efficiency and your ability to conserve energy. But he is who he is. And I love him to death. I just think he's a delight to watch. And I'm always cheering for him.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed watching Ross. His book, The Art of Resilience, for anybody that's going through a bit of a tough time. If you've read or listened to The Obstacle is the Way, enjoyed it, and thought, I want more, like a spiritual successor to that book is The Art of Resilience from Ross. So Stoic Sports Science, I think he called it.
Yeah.
And it's this sort of semi-autobiographical diary of his swim around the UK where he applies both Stoic philosophy lessons and sports science to the narrative. Fucking awesome.
And he's a great writer. He
Phenomenal
was a contributor to GQ. Like, he's been writing for a long time. I think he has a sports science degree. And he's done a lot of crazy stuff. Like, he did a
log swim?
triathlon, like log swim. He pulled a car, like he's done a lot of kind of Jack LaLanne type stunts over the years.
In other news, this episode is brought to you by Levels. One of the single biggest predictors of how long you're going to live and how good you will feel whilst living is your metabolic health. The single best way to understand how your daily decisions are impacting your longevity and your vitality is by tracking your glucose. This is why I wear a continuous glucose monitor from Levels. It allows me to understand in real time whether the foods that I'm eating are having a positive or a negative impact on my health. The Levels app interprets your glucose data and provides a simple score after you eat a meal so that you can see how different foods impact your health and develop a diet which is custom and personalized, perfect for your body. The main realization that I had was eating cereal at any time of the day spikes my glucose through the roof, but if I took a walk for about 15 minutes, I could bring that back down. I would have never realized this if I hadn't been wearing a continuous glucose monitor. Right now, Levels has a special offer for my listeners by going to the link in the description below or heading to levels.link/modernwisdom. That's levels.link/modernwisdom. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you enjoyed that clip with Rich, then press here for the full episode in all its glory.